welcome to my process stream for how I personally create a webtoon. I'm currently not using Clip Studio Paint. I use a combination of Paint Tool SAI and GIMP. The reason being because my laptop initially was not powerful enough to handle creating a webtoon in CSP. A webtoon canvas can be pretty big. Mine run from like 800 by 60,000 to like 90,000. So I use Paint Tool SAI because it's a pretty lightweight program and it can handle giant canvases like that. So first off, how do I start off drawing my webtoon? First of all, I need to write a script. So the script comes first. Obviously, I'm not going to show you the actual script. This is the sample script, the fake script that I'll be using for this example, this process example. I go back into Paint Tool SAI and I draw the panel. So as you've noticed, there is no text here yet. Now, Paint Tool SAI does have a text tool. However, you cannot center a line with this tool. It only does right align text. Watch this. I'll write some mumbo jumbo here. So if I wanted to center align it like you are supposed to for a webtoon, I'd have to manually type space and do this, and it's awful. It's not a very good typesetting program. So what I do is I will save this as something else. Currently it's in a SAI tool file type. That's the file type used for Paint Tool SAI. So I'll save it as a PNG. There's some loading going on. You couldn't see what I did just now when I changed the file type, but you can see down here, it's a PNG now. So after that, what I do is I'll import it into GIMP. Here we go. And this is where I'll do all my typesetting. So I'll open up GIMP and so I import it into GIMP as a PNG. Then I'll do all my typesetting in GIMP. The font I use is CC Astro City and the size is 30. And then now that it's in GIMP, I can center align it just like this. Hello. This is just a example panel. Usually I'd copy and paste it directly for accuracy, but I'm too lazy to. So for here, I'll just type it out. Here we go. Now our typesetting is done. And now how do I import this text back into my original file? When you save it in GIMP, it'll save it as an XCF file, which Paint Tool SAI cannot read. So how do I save this text layer specifically? Well, that's simple. I hide the sketch layer, so I just have the text, and then I save this. I resave it as re-export it as the PNG file. And then what I'm going to do now is go back into Paint Tool SAI, and I'll reopen. Copy this text back into my canvas, and there, it's in the exact position that I want it to be. Now, this is especially important when I'm working on a really long canvas because I can't move all the text into place. So I just save it as a transparent PNG file in GIMP and paste it back into the SAI file. And all the text will be in the right position. Now, there's also the paneling and the speech bubbles that I still have to do. And this is possible in Paint Tool SAI. There's a shape button here. So what I do for paneling is I'll create a square shape, just like that. And oh, it filled it all in. Why, yes, because Paint Tool SAI doesn't allow you to create a transparent shape. It automatically fills the shape in. So how do I fix this? I create another layer below this one, because right now it's a shape layer. I can't modify this. I create another layer below this one to merge the shape layer into. And now I just have a normal drawing layer that's just a giant square. What I do is I select that. I select my selection, and then I reduce the size of my selection by 4 pixels. And then I just Control X, cut out the inside of my panel manually, like that. Yes, it is a lot to do just for creating a panel. And then there's the question of the speech bubble here. So what I usually do is the shape tool again, and there's a circle button here. I create a circle. It's about the size of the speech bubble. I make it pink so I can still see what the text looks like, how it aligns with the speech bubble. If I make it black, then I won't be able to read the text anymore. So I draw the shape, and then I have to add a tail to the shape, right? So again, like with the panels, I create a separate layer below this one. I merge it down to create a normal drawing layer, which I can then edit. I create a tail. Because the thing with, I'll show you, with the thing with this shape layer is that I can't, now that I'm in this shape layer, I can't draw into it. I can't do anything. I don't have the tools. You see here, these are the tools that I can use in this layer. There's no pen. So I cannot modify this shape. I have to merge it down into a normal layer to add the tail. So I've got my tail. And then I'll change the color of the speech bubble now that I know exactly where it is. I'll change the color of the speech bubble and turn it black. Then I select it. And then I again, just like with the panels, I reduce the size of my selection by 4 pixels. And here, instead of cutting it out, I fill it in with the color white. And there you go. That's my speech bubble. And yeah, it is a bit more complicated to do all of this stuff in Paint Tool SAI. But once you do it all at once, it's not too much trouble. Now next is to drawing the line art. I'm going to reduce the opacity of my sketch layer here to make it easier to see what I'm drawing. And let me just rename my layers as well so you know what you're looking at. Text. This is the bubble layer. And this is the panel layer. This is basically how I name my layers. I'll create a new one called line. This is where all the line art goes. So I pick out my line art color. I have the palette of pretty much every color that's ever been used or will be used in Blue Matter here. I just pick them out. Now we are done with the line art and we can remove our sketch layer. And what we have to do now is color it in. So for the background color, what I do is I'll go into the panel layer, I'll select everything inside the panel, and then I'll create a background layer and I'll fill in everything that I've selected. So this is going to be the background color. And then what I'm going to do is I'll invert my selection like this, and then I'll go into my line art layer and I'll select everything that's not my line art. So going with the brush to fix some areas, but mostly it's just selecting with the fill tool and then filling in all of the little cracks that the fill tool missed. There you go. And then again, I invert my selection. So now I've only colored in my line art layer. So this is the color for my characters. I fill this in, and now it's just Shinsa that's colored in. So what I do first is I'll color in the background layer. Since she's just standing in blank space here, this won't take a lot. I'll create a second layer above my back layer, and I'll call this the color layer for the background. I clip it to the layer below it, so that means I cannot color outside of the area within the panel that I've already filled in. So for example, I can take this color and take this pen and just go crazy, but you see it'll only fill in my background. So I use that to color in my background. It doesn't really matter, let's just color it blue for the sky, since there you go. And add a splash of white to create some kind of variation in the background. And there, very simple standing in white space background. And now we get to color in Shinsa herself. So again, I'll create layers on top of my filled in base layer. For characters, I create 3 layers, and I clip all of them to the bottom layer so that again, I can't color outside of Shinsa. There you go. And so for the first layer, I'm just gonna color in her skin. I use the marker tool. It's very sensitive to pressure, and the opacity will change depending on how hard I'm pressing. So I basically use this to create variation in tone while I'm coloring. And also because of the opacity of the marker tool, the base color below it also leaks through. And this is how I create a sense of unity, I suppose, in my color palette. By doing things this way, it kind of just normalizes all the different colors and doesn't make them look like they clash too much. And there you go, she's colored in. Now she still looks a bit flat, that's just because there isn't any shading in. So we'll add that soon. I create another layer and I clip it again to the bottom layer so I can't color outside of my fill. And I set the mode to multiply, and I pick out my shading color. Now usually I actually shade before I color, but I just forgot here, but it really doesn't matter what order I do it in. I'll just take my brush tool and I shade in the areas that I want it shaded in. Let's create some depth. And there may also need to be some SFX sometimes. I don't really need one here, but I'll add one just to show you how it's done. I create how I create an SFX layer here. And then I add in the second layer on top of that. So what I'll do now is I'll draw it in the color that I want my SFX to be. My effects to be just the action lines, and maybe like the action she's doing, like wave. She's waving. Just write it in, and I select that. And I increment my selection by a few pixels. And I go to the layer below this one. And I select a different color, the color I want to border this with. Well, I'm choosing white. So I fill that in with white. And there you go. Basic FX. I merge those two together. Now it's one FX layer. And lastly, we'll have to add texture to our colors. So for the background, pretty simple. I go into the color layer, I add in my texture, I adjust my texture to the intensity, I I want. And then for the color, the character's color, I had it colored in 3 different layers. So I had merged all 3 of these together, and then I apply the effect. Same as the background, just to create a bit of a watercolor texture. And then there you go. I'll rename my layers to specify what they are. And yeah, that's everything. We're done! Yay! Thank you for tuning in. This is basically my long convoluted process of drawing blue matter without Clip Studio Paint. I might move over at some point, but we'll have to see. I do really like the stabilizers in Paint Tool side. It's really good for line art and stuff like that. But for now, this is how I do it. Thank you! Bye now.